Welcome to Men Making a Difference, PGSAO men who inspire and motivate.
Good afternoon, Jonathan Church. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you. And congratulations are in order. You were recently promoted to Deputy State's Attorney. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You also get to keep the title of Chief of Homicide as well. So I know that you have done a lot of great work in the office. Oftentimes people know who I am as the elected state's attorney, but you're doing really important work in our office, and I want people to get to know you as well. So Jonathan, why don't you tell our listeners all about the work that you do in this office?
Sure, thank you. So I'm the chief of the homicide unit as well as a deputy, and the chief of the homicide unit runs the homicide unit of attorneys, support staff, victim witness advocates, and we handle all of the homicide cases in Prince George's County, whether it's with the Prince George's County Police Department or the other municipalities. We oversee and prosecute those cases, to include becoming involved with those cases at the very outset, the moment that it happens, so that we're intimately involved in the case and dealing with the families of the victims right off of the bat as well, so that they know they have a voice and that they can have information flow that they typically wouldn't have. So as the chief of the homicide unit, I'm privileged to be a part of that and work with a great team of attorneys doing that. More recently, with my promotion as a deputy, I've taken over the training for the office as well. And we've put together a training program for not only the office, somewhere in the neighborhood of 46 different training sessions over the period that we've been out, but we put together training opportunities for all the local police departments. Actually, even beyond that, because we just got a response from the chief of police with La Plata, who's asking if we would be willing to do this training for them as well. Good stuff. So we're putting together training for the police departments in all areas of constitutional law. So that's what I'm involved in on a daily basis. And then when I'm not doing that, I sleep.
Okay. And I know being on the phone with you often in the wee hours of the morning and also on the weekends, I know that sleep is a rarity for you. So tell me, how do you balance it all?
So it's because I have the passion to do what I'm doing. The why really generates the drive. Believe it or not, I sometimes wonder, or I'm very thankful that I get paid to do what I do, because I love what I do. I love what I do. And it's not like, sometimes it's like work, but it's not always like work, because I'm very passionate about victims' rights, advocacy for victims, but not just advocacy for victims, also looking for right results for defendants, what it is that we can do to bring them back into society and make them a productive part of society. So there's a lot of it holistically goes into it. And a lot of it probably relates to my background, my faith, my background as an officer, and family. I mean, I see the benefits of all that. And it's such a privilege and an honor for me every day to walk in and be able to do this. So the balance is emotionally and psychologically, I know I'm doing the right thing. I know I'm doing what God intended on me doing. He's made me good at doing it. And I'm taking advantage of the talents and abilities. I need my downtime too, no doubt. We all need that.
Yes.
So,
and what do you do? Like, how do you get that balance? Do you have hobbies? What do you like to do?
I do, and you all think I'm crazy. So 2 months ago, I bought a sailboat. Now, I have never stepped foot on a sailboat until I stepped foot on this one, and it was a used one. I had no idea how to sail. And a bunch of my friends said to me, what do you mean that you bought a sailboat? You don't know how to sail. And I said, well, how else do you learn to sail other than having a sailboat? So
good point.
I've been, right? None of them will ride with me just yet, but I think you, Madam State's Attorney, did offer to go out with me. So,
I did. I have a life preserver that I purchased on Amazon ready for me. And as soon as it gets in, I'm there.
Absolutely. But I do that. I exercise every day. Those are my hobbies. I go, and as you know, hiking. Hiking is something that I took up since we can do these sort of Zoom meetings and training sessions. So I balance it out equally with those things. Physically active, emotionally active, my faith, still attending church, whether it's through Zoom or actually some of them are physical services. So I balance it all out. But the bottom line really is I love what I do, and I'm just so privileged to be a part of it, be able to do this.
Absolutely. I want to explore a little bit around the trainings that we are now offering. And thank you so much for taking that on. I know that during the pandemic, well, we're still facing a pandemic, but during the height of that, we really wanted to do trainings earlier this year, but we couldn't do it in person. And so, we said, hey, let's see if we can do this virtually. And they've worked out so well. And so then we said, hey, we can extend these trainings to our law enforcement partners, and they've been very receptive. But, really what I wanted to kind of ask you about is, we're facing a time when people are talking about defund the police, and it's mainly brought on by, I believe, cases that are very notorious. We all know about these cases where excessive force is used, or allegations of excessive force, or we're witnessing what we believe is straight out murder that has occurred. And the public is questioning, should police have the authority that they have? Are they using their discretion appropriately? Are they violating the constitutional rights of citizens and residents? And then how do we address that? As state's attorneys, our job is to protect everyone and understand everyone's job so that we can tell them what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. So now that we're in this era where everything is focused on reform, and now we're charging ourselves with doing more trainings. How do you see our role in the future of law enforcement?
Well, so I certainly see our role in dealing with constitutional issues. I mean, and that is what we deal with. We do deal with criminal law and which cases are going to be charged and what's not going to be charged. But it really all comes down to the Constitution and the protection of all people. All people are guaranteed the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that is our goal. And we look at it in the lens, I believe, in the lens of today. And with the recognition, because this is something that is really turned around with implicit bias in law enforcement, and that includes everybody. And so look at it that lens, and we look at the training that is consistent with the mindset today and what's being revealed, and putting together a training program with officers to teach them what we consider to be prosecutable cases, what the Constitution allows as far as the Fourth Amendment search and seizure. Seizure has been the biggest issue in the past couple months, and then sometimes searches following that. But what is permissible under the Fourth Amendment? What's permissible under use of force? Because we are prosecuting those types of cases. And I know you had Ms. Joy on before, who talked a little bit about public integrity. So our goal is to not just be reactive and look at what happens and do something then. Our goal is to be proactive, to go out to police officers, because we agree that most are doing it for the same reasons I did. They want to do the best that they can, and they need to hear from us. These are the things that are going wrong. These are the things you need to correct. These are the things you need to do under the Constitution. And if you go across these lines, this is what you can expect as well. They need to be very clear on the stance of the office on what we will and what won't prosecute. And so I think we've looked at it at that lens, putting together Fourth Amendment training, Fifth Amendment training, use of force training, public integrity training, and ethics training. And we have those programs and sessions that we're setting out through the fall.
Yeah, and I think this is extremely important, because one of the things I do appreciate about the officers who we have presented our training program to is that they're very receptive to it. They want to know, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? What can I do better? And I think that's the best place to start, with an open mind. And I think someone like you, who's been there, you've done that job, you understand that job, but now you're also on the other side in terms of the prosecution side. And so you understand maybe even things that you did that maybe you could have done differently. You're giving the officers the benefit of your experience. And I think that's so important, because we need each other. We all do, and our residents need us too. I think no one doesn't want law enforcement and officers available when they need them. What they don't want is for their rights to be violated. And I think that we can achieve that through training, through communication, and everyone keeping an open mind. So having someone like you who has that real global view and that perspective, I think is great for our office. Look, you've prosecuted some of the most complex, difficult, and famous or infamous cases in our county, including Sean Urbanski, who was the University of Maryland student who killed the Bowie State student, Second Lieutenant Richard Collins III, who actually posthumously was promoted to first lieutenant. So we are really proud of him, and we are so happy for his family because, they lost just an excellent young man. And I don't know if it's the Urbanski case or another case, but I'd like you to kind of share maybe, one or two of your most difficult cases that you've prosecuted here in the office.
Sure. And I can't remember the precise date, so I won't use Mr. Urbanski because you did talk a little bit about that. But it was probably around 2013. I prosecuted the case. I was involved in the prosecution of the case of a victim by the name of Linwood Harris. He was a community activist in Alexandria, Virginia. He worked at a children's youth facility there, doing sports and teaching sports and so on. And he went missing in the middle of the fall and just completely disappeared. For about 5 or 6 months, the search continued in Alexandria and so on. And there were certain phone records that indicated that his ATM card was used in the area of Fort Washington. Well, it was in, I believe, either January or February that his body was found in a well on an abandoned piece of property in Fort Washington. And so it was piecing back together who committed this crime. And it turned out there were 3 defendants: Simon Newman, Linwood Johnson, and Tyrone Lewis, who were involved. And turned out Tyrone Lewis had been a student, a young man who went to that particular gym and knew Mr. Harris from the gym, and also knew that he sold clothing. He had a clothing line in the name of his daughter, which was really sweet. And I think they knew he did that, and they kidnapped him in order to try to get money out of him, and drove him around to a bunch of different ATMs to try to get money out of his ATM machine, and then eventually wound up killing him and putting his body in the well in Fort Washington. And the challenges this presented is, of all the ATMs that were used, none of them had video, with exception to one back in Alexandria, Virginia, on King Street, in fact, in Old Town. And all that video showed was markings on his hands and arms in a black and white kind of grainy sort of video. But we knew our suspects all had tattoos. So we were able to take photos of those tattoos, and using the smartboard that we use for our trials, we were able to compare the snapshots from the videos with the actual pictures of his arms and hands. And we discovered that using that technique in the prosecution and trying the case with that and showing the jury those comparisons really brought to light that Tyrone Lewis was the one that went to trial ultimately, and it brought to light what he was involved in. It was about a 1.5-week trial, and it was just a very sad trial because this man was such a good man who was doing so many good things in the community in Alexandria, and people were just distraught over him disappearing. And of course, finding out later what had actually happened was even worse. But the prosecution was very serious of that, and using the techniques of the video and the comparisons and so on. He was ultimately convicted of first-degree murder. He was a suspect in 2 other murders as well. So he's not a good guy. He was ultimately sentenced to life without parole and plus 140 years. And so he won't be going anywhere anytime soon. But more importantly, working with the family of Mr. Harris was just amazing because they were so thankful for the job that we were able to do and the justice we were able to find. We could never bring him back, but we gave him a voice. And they really appreciated that. So that's probably one of the most significant cases I can remember being involved in. And of course, the one with Lieutenant Collins, Second Lieutenant Collins, was, and I guess I'll bring that up also because what I think is significant about that is we had a hate crime statute, as you know, that was inadequate or not, maybe could have been written a little bit better. But we didn't, so Mr. Urbanski was convicted of first-degree murder. However, the hate crime was thrown out. And our office you did exactly what you should have done. You stepped up and you're like, okay, we're going to fix this and make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else again. We have no conviction rates or low conviction rates across the state in hate crimes. Clearly, something's wrong with the way the statute's written. And you took the initiative with the family of his family and pushed the legislature, and we got it clarified. And now we have a good hate crime statute that's going to cover those areas. So a lot of good out of that case. And I'm so proud to have been a part of how that all went down.
Absolutely. Well, Jonathan, you're going to be a big part of just this office now and into the future. And again, I am very privileged to work with you. And I know that our listeners are, I think comforted in knowing that we have someone of your, with your abilities and your compassion and commitment working here in Prince George's County. So thank you so much for being a part of our office and all of the work that you're doing. And to everyone, thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to seeing you next time.